Hello, welcome to the self-learning platform by Dr. Sushma Singh. Today we start Unit 26, Feminism. And we start with topic Feminist critique of the public or private dichotomy. In liberal theory, the distinction between public and private answers the question of the legitimate extent of the authority of the law. The public realm is understood in this context to be open to government regulation, while the private realm is to be protected from such action, sexuality and the family being understood to be private. In Marxist theory, too, this distinction is central, although from a different point of view. Engels argued that the woman's oppression begins with the transformation of a housework from a public to a private sector. The private, in this sense, is the arena of oppression, and only when women emerge into the public sphere of production will they become truly emancipated. Since for Engels the motor force of history is provided by changes in the relations of production, defined in the context of capitalism as the relations between the capital and labor. Housework is not work. Women participate in history only to the extent that they emerge from the private and enter the industrial workforce. Now the point is feminist criticism. Feminist scholarship emerging from both liberal and Marxist traditions have contested this distinction as being conceptually flawed and politically oppressive. From within the liberal tradition comes the argument that the dichotomy assumes between public or non-domestic and private or domestic has enabled the family to be excluded from the values of justice and equality, which have animated liberal thought since the 17th century beginnings of liberalism. The individual was the adult male head of the household and thus is right to be free from interference by the state or church, included his rights over those in his control in the private realm, women, children, servants. Thus, oppression within the family was rendered invisible to political theory. In addition to sharing this view, socialist feminist critique the public or private distinction in the Marxist theory produced by the model of political economy based on production defined an economic production for the capitalist market. This model, they argue, ignores the private sphere of reproduction, where women are responsible for reproducing both humans through childbearing and labor power through housework. For traditional Marxists, this work is seen to be part of the non-economic or superstructural realm and is not even defined as work. Socialist feminists therefore contest the public or private distinction by showing that sexuality, procreation, and housework, understood to be private, in fact hold up the public sphere of production. This argument is that housework is a commodity, it is unpaid labor that helps to reproduce labor power. This is so in two senses. When male labor comes home, it is the housework done by women that ensures that they can go back to work the next day. The bearing of children reproduces actual people who will work in factories, etc. However, this work is not paid for, and this unpaid labor in the private sphere underlies and ensures capitalist production in the public sphere. Thus, feminists across the political spectrum are agreed that public and the private are not two distinct and separate spheres, and that the assumption that they are is uniformly detrimental to women's interest. Now let us discuss lack of consensus among feminists. However, there is no consensus on the consequences of this understanding for feminist practice. From one kind of feminist position, characteristics of US feminism, it is possible then to argue that many claims important to feminists, from reproductive rights to protection against sexual harassment, are most effectively grounded on the claims to privacy. In fact, the rhetoric of the individual's right to privacy has been used in the USA to secure some rights for women against the patriarchal family. For example, the landmark judgment on abortion in Roe v. Wade is based on the belief in the individual woman's rights to privacy. So was the judgment in 1965 that the right of married couples to use contraceptives is part of a right to privacy older than the Bill of Rights. Feminists who support privacy as a ground for securing rights for women while challenging the traditional public or private dichotomy make the argument that the virtues of privacy have been not available to women since they did not have the status of individual in the public sphere. In this view, therefore, the task of feminist practice is to transform the institutions and practices of gender so that a genuine sphere of privacy, free of governmental and legal intrusion, can be ensured for both men and women. This is not a position taken within the Indian women movement. More common here is the diametrically opposite stand arising from the radical feminist slogan, "The personal is political," which has brought into the public arena issues such as domestic violence against women, child abuse, and rape. Feminist pressure on legislation on these issues has meant the recognition that violence of various kinds against the woman in the private realm of the family and sexuality is, in principle, as actionable as violence in the public arena. The logical extension of this line of thinking is that privacy and family are areas of judicial void and judicial weakness to the extent that they are outside the application of law. Thus, issues arising from sexuality and family take on legal significance, although adherents of this position do hold that the state is paternalistic and masculine. They are confident that if a law is designed by feminists from the standpoint of women, it can be of advantage to women. They denounce the right to privacy, therefore, as a means to protect the existing structures of power and access to resources in the private sphere. For example, it is argued that by sanctioning abortion as a right of privacy, the state has ensured that control women won out of this legislation has gone to men within the family, husbands and fathers. Further, when abortion is framed as a right of privacy, the state has no obligation to provide public funding for abortion. Thus, the feminist reconceptualization of the public or private dichotomy and the critique of the family as an oppressive institution opens up several new areas of debate. Now, summary of the unit. In this unit, you have learned the basic meanings of feminism. The origin of the term has been traced, and the three broad strands of feminism liberal, socialist, and radical have been explained. Feminism and patriarchy are inextricably linked, and thus the latter has been analyzed in detail. You also now known that one of the key contributions for feminist theory is the making of a distinction between sex and gender. The unit also tells us in detail about the developments in the sex or gender distinction in feminist theory. It should be realized that the sex or gender distinction is not as simple and straight as it may first appear. Through this overview, we have seen how feminist theory have developed over a century of political practices, generating new debates within itself and offering new challenges to key concepts of mainstream political theory. Now we want to wind up this lecture and we have come to the end of the unit. Thank you so much for your attention.